Yo, what's up? What's going on? What's good, everybody? That's right. We are at the end of 2023, and we have had a great year in the sport of boxing. We are just a few hours away from moving forward to 2024, year 2024, and we got a number of things that we are going to be talking about here in this particular show. We got the 2023 year in award show here, and we got a number of things that we're going to have awards for, where we're going to have our picks for fight of the year, fighter of the year, upset of the year, knockout of the year, trainer of the year, and prospect of the year. Now, before we get into all that, um, we had a great year in the sport of boxing. We definitely had a great year in the sport of boxing. Some have said that this year has probably been the best year in the sport for at least a decade. For at least a decade. A multitude of fights that had high stakes in the divisions, all across the divisions. Big fights, probably the biggest fights in the sport that we've had in the past few years, all took place within this year. At least I felt like it was. And with that being said, it still made things very, very compelling for the year 2023. We had a multitude of big fights. We had, of course, um, you know, Tank Davis versus Ryan Garcia. We've had, of course, undisputed at welterweight with Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence Jr. We've had what is it? David Benavidez and Caleb Plant. That was there, the super middleweight division. We had Canelo Alvarez versus Jermell Charlo in the super middleweight division. Um, you know, we've had multitude of other fights. We've had fights in the heavyweight division. You had Deontay Wilder versus Joseph Parker there in the heavyweight division. You had what happened with Tyson Fury and Francis Ngannou as well there to kind of like show the spectrum of what happened there at heavyweight. But there are also a number of fights that took place in a multitude of other divisions that kind of like shaped the division and whatnot. So definitely a great year in the sport of boxing there, and was definitely thankful to be a part of a multitude of those fights. I was able to attend and cover a lot of fights this year. Going from the two fights or the two fight cards that involved Tank Davis, the first one with Hector Luis Garcia as his opponent, and the Ryan Garcia in April. You also had Shakur Stevenson versus Shuichiro Yoshino. Was able to attend that. The Boots Ennis bout that was in July there. When he was part of the card, of course, with Tank Davis. He was part of that card, but then was also to be a main event. He was able to be involved in a main event bout this year in Atlantic City. So I was able to see that, where he was able to stop Roy Villa there in Atlantic City. So was able to attend that as well. He had a number of cards here in the DC area that I was able to attend and cover. We saw Gary Antoine Russell stop Kent Cruz within one round. We saw Manuel Rodriguez being able to win a world title over here, and that was in August. And like I said, in September, I was able to attend the fight card with Canelo Alvarez against Jermell Charlo. among other events. So very busy, very busy 2023, and was a very, very good 2023. So was very thankful to be part of, that and everything that happened within that. You know what I'm saying? But big ups to everybody that, was listening here live here for that Boxing Source 2023 award show. We got, a few things here that we're going to, go through. So like I said, man, first off, we want to just jump right into it, man. Let's just go with, first with the thing of a prospect of the year. Now, you had a number of candidates that are out there that could have been kind of like shown or kind of like featured as a prospect. But the thing is, too, in many cases, people can't really gauge like what fighter is a prospect and what fighter is not. Is it the amount of fights they have? Is it the amount of years that they've been in the game, or what is it? But with what I've seen here, I pretty much like broke it down to 4 fighters that were candidates for prospect of the year. Okay, first off, we got Abdullah Mason. Abdullah Mason there, definitely had a good 2023. He, now has a record of 11 wins with 0 losses, had 5 fights this year, 5, so he had a very busy 2023. He's just there at 19 years old. And like I said, 11 wins, 0 losses, 9 wins by way of, knockout. In the 5 fights that he had this year, 4 of them ended by knockout or TKO. So he definitely had a great year there. We had, of course, another candidate that I would kind of like put in the list, and that is Bruce Carrington. He's there. I guess he's, kind of up there for some to say an age at 26. But his record is 10-0 with 6 of those wins by way of knockout. He also, had a very busy 2023 with 5 fights. 2 of those fights were by decision. The other were by knockout or stoppage. Definitely looking at him as one of those guys that's coming up there. Currently, bouncing around at 126 and 130. So he's trying to figure out if he's there at, what is it, like featherweight or super featherweight. So you got him there as a potential candidate for prospect of the year. Next up, you got Emiliano Vargas. Yes, one of the sons of the great Fernando Vargas, legendary fighter, of, as they say, yesteryear, whatnot. He is currently 8-0 with 7 of those wins by way of knockout. Just 19 years old. They're within the lightweight division, and you talk about fights, man. The 2 previous guys I mentioned had 5 fights this year. Emiliano Vargas was able to fit in 6 fights this year. That's right, 6 fights this year, with only the first fight of 2023 going, to decision. Every other fight was by knockout as far as like wins there for Emiliano Vargas. So you do have him as one of those potential candidates for prospect of the year. Now, the other candidate that we have is somebody that, was very decorated in the amateurs, very noted in the amateurs, well known for some that have followed the amateurs and the pros over the past couple of years, because he is tied to another fighter that is, kind of well known in the lightweight division. But this guy at lightweight has already faced and defeated 2 fighters this year that had more than 25 wins in their professional career. But he was able to defeat both of them. And that prospect candidate is Andy Cruz. Well, yeah, he does have 2 wins, and one of them by way of knockout. But those 2 wins were against very experienced guys. But those were the 4 candidates there, as in Abdullah Mason, Bruce Carrington, Emiliano Vargas, and Andy Cruz. And the boxing source here. Hold on just a second. Before I name or put in who would be the prospect of the year, let me add in my guest that has come in here. Great guest, this chef that's been a great contributor to the boxing source, not just in 2023, but over the course of the history of the boxing source, man. Big thanks for Brother Terrell to join in here, man. What's going on, man?
Hey, what's up, JR? Just once again, as always, glad to just talk boxing, favorite sport, forever and ever. That's just what it is. So good to jump on and hear you talk about the year in review on what was actually a great year of boxing, despite the pessimists and out there in regards to the sport of boxing. We are forever optimists in regards to fights, the new changes, things like that, and even as you go about covering out prospects, fight of the year, KO of the year, stuff like that. It's just great once again to talk boxing. It's a beautiful sport, definitely.
Yeah, for sure. Been enjoying it for decades and decades. Been exciting, had exciting finishes and everything like that. Just being able to, like I said, being able to cover the sport has been something that I've been very thankful and stuff like that to do. And just seeing all of these guys, whether they're veterans in the game or just coming into the sport, you kind of get excited to see these guys and how they're able to progress throughout their professional careers. And with that being said, that's why I continue to try to do my best here to cover the sport, to have the podcast every week to cover as many events as I can and try to provide interviews to y'all as much as I possibly can as well. So very thankful to do that, and very thankful to have guests on here like Brother Terrell. Like I was saying before, you've been a great contributor to the Boxing Source, like pivotal part to the Boxing Source, ever since this thing pretty much started up. So we'll give my props and my big ups to you for being that.
Yeah, even one quick thing too, man. I'm older than you. We know that. But at the same time, the work that you've done, attending fights in person, your interviews, providing insight, things like that, has also changed the way I look at boxing. So you have educated me and made me a better boxing fan from all the stuff that you do, your interest, and no matter what you go through, been on the road. What was that? About 4 or 5 years ago, you got to your car broke down. I think you're going to Atlantic City. I forgot where you're going to. Something happened to you on the road or whatever. But just stuff like that you go through. But you made me a better boxing fan, and I appreciate that. So that way I can appreciate the business of boxing, things that the typical fan doesn't know about. I'm definitely not a casual fan. but bottom line, you have made me a better consumer of boxing, where I can understand things more from the business side to the fight side, inside interviews, things like that, and just to watch out for more things instead of just being looking over things. So thanks to you as well.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Big thanks for saying that. And that kind of you talk about the thing there where I did try to go to one of those fights. This was like back in 2020, man. And it wasn't like a car broke down. It was that I got into a car accident, man. Pretty much had hit the back of someone's car that like hit the brakes, and I was like, and I couldn't even make it to that fight. It was supposed to be up over in Pennsylvania, Allentown, Pennsylvania, man. But still was able to get through that and deal with what I had to deal with that, and then still push forward. So ever since then, everything has grown as far as like the movement for the Boxing Source, and trying to build the channel here on YouTube, and have subscribers, and have it continue to grow. Big ups to Bruce Gas in the building. salute to Bruce Gas, who's been, putting in work here in 2023 as well. Multiple interviews and conversations on the Bruce Gas Boxing, Jazz, and More YouTube channel. Right. All right. Now, back to, my first joint here for that prospect of the year to, go through the 4 fighters that I named. Once again, I have Abdullah Mason, Bruce Carrington, Emiliano Vargas, and Andy Cruz. And, like I said, with Abdullah Mason and Bruce Carrington, they had 5 fights here in 2023. And Emiliano Vargas had 6 fights here in 2023. So those 3 fighters have had a very busy year. Andy Cruz, had pretty much his debut this year, but, pretty much faced very experienced fighters there with, his fight against Juan Carlos Burgos and Giovanni Straffon. So you did have him with 2, very experienced fighters that he faced there at this point. But he was able to get through those 2 and be 2-0. But the person that I have here as the 2023 prospect of the year, I give the award to the man out of Brownsville, Brooklyn, Bruce Carrington Jr., man. Yep, I said Bruce Carrington Jr. I was able to, see him at least, what was it, like one time, when he was over in the Prudential Center in Newark against Brandon Chambers. He was able to score a quick stoppage victory over Brandon Chambers. And like I said, he was able to get right back into the ring there a few more times in this year. But definitely looking forward to seeing him, in the ring come next year. And we had his last fight was just a few weeks ago over in Pembroke Pines. So he's there, like I said, 10-0, 6 wins by knockout. Definitely looking forward to seeing more of him in 2024. But you could also say that for the other 3 fighters that I had on the list: Abdullah Mason, Emiliano Vargas, and Andy Cruz. You could have some other fighters there as prospects that you could potentially name. Some kind of put up Diego Pacheco. I'm not also sure because of the amount of fights that he's had. You might have a few other guys there that's out there. Of course, one guy that I'm watching out for is the WBC Youth Champion Jalil Hackett. He's going to be there around 140, 147. He's definitely been a guy that has been watched by the Boxing Source. Of course, is in the Washington, D.C. area. So we're going to see, we're going to look forward to more from Jalil Hackett in 2024. But, just put him on the list as one of the guys that could be potentially prospect of the year for 2024. But as of this year, you do have Bruce Carrington as the 2023 Boxing Source prospect of the year, man. Terrell, what did you think about, some of the young fighters that I mentioned, though?
Yeah, so I'm definitely high on Diego Pacheco. Your guy that you named, I'm not too as familiar with him. I would definitely need to catch up on him. And quite honestly, I thought you were going to name Abdullah Mason the prospect of the year because that kid, he looks special. He looks special. Speed, control, speed again, and everything. And the eye test he looks like the next best thing. I may be a step ahead, but to me, he looks better than Keyshawn Davis at this point. I know he only has a handful of fights. I know that. But when you look at a fighter, their style, things like that, I'm not saying that Keyshawn Davis is nothing, because he'll be something at one. He'll be a possible world champion at one point, more likely. But Abdullah Mason, he looks special. I'm definitely jump into your choice and get some eyes for him and things like that. But I said for me, Abdullah Mason is definitely he's got next and from his style, things like that, it won't take him long.
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame you, for that pick. I mean, Abdullah Mason is a very, very, good fighter, just from, what he's done here in 2023. And I mean, I feel like, he's, like I said, he's there at like 19, but you see him in the ring, and I'm telling you, he looks, younger than 19, man. He almost looks like he's like 16 years old or something like that, man. But yeah, he is a very, very good fighter already here, just within 11 fights. Like I said, 11 pro fights. And yeah, he might be, like progressing a little bit faster than maybe Keyshawn Davis or something like that. A quick shout out to G Funky Boxing in the building. What's going on there with you? Not sure if you saw it, but I did reach out to you to see if you could jump in as well here for the award show. But yeah, back to the thing with Abdullah Mason. Yeah, man. I mean, I feel like he, could be one of those guys that is really someone to watch out for there. Within the division that he's at right now is, they're at lightweight 135. I don't know how long he's going to stay at 135, but he's definitely shown that he could really do some damage here, and definitely looking forward to seeing what they're going to do with him in 2024. Of course, you got a lot of young guys that are developing there within Top Rank that they have, and they've featured over the course of the year. So, definitely going to see, more of these guys. I mentioned like three of the four candidates were all under Top Rank, basically. And so, that's where you pretty much can see them featured. So definitely could, have someone like him. You got, other guys like Tiger Johnson, that's out there. You got like Haven Brady Jr., that's out there that's, been on some Top Rank cards, been on an Overtime Boxing card as well, so you'll definitely be able to see a lot of these young fighters, coming up in the ranks and building themselves up here in 2024. But, like I said, I just felt like, with what Carrington is able to do, this year, that he, basically stands out. All right, G Funky, no problem, man. You just listen in here while you're chilling with the family and everything like that. So, that's no problem, no. You know what I'm saying? All right, so that's the thing there for boxer or prospect of the year. Now, just moving forward, we're going to go over. Let's see, man. We're gonna go straight to upset of the year. We had like a few fights that kind of like stood out to say like, hey man, I this one I just didn't necessarily expect, So that's the thing, man. We got like four candidates on there, some, maybe some people may not be familiar with. Some were, kind of like things that, folks were kind of familiar with, but it was more about I would say the odds that, one fighter was supposed to win and wasn't able to, get that win. So that's why you pretty much like had that basically happen, right? So here we go for the candidates for upset of the year. All right. Two of them come from the same card, the same fight card, and both of them pretty much took place last week. The first one is Isaac Caballero over Arslanbek Makhmudov. Yeah, there were two undefeated fighters, but Makhmudov was highly favored in this bout against Isaac Caballero, pretty much like an 11-1 to 12-1 favorite over Caballero to score the win. And Caballero, not only beat Makhmudov, but was able to stop Makhmudov with multiple body shots to put him down to the canvas. And you had Isaac Caballero score that win to stay undefeated. So that was a big win from Isaac Caballero over Arslanbek Makhmudov. The next one, of course, for many is Joseph Parker's win over Deontay Wilder. Deontay Wilder came into that fight, not only as the favorite, but it was like plus 650 at one point to up to plus 750, and was, it was like likely or that it not plus 750, but minus 750 and minus 650. But it was also likely that the outcome was going to be Deontay Wilder winning by knockout over Joseph Parker. But Joseph Parker had a great game plan, was able to scout Deontay Wilder and what his mannerisms were, and his performance and also combination with what Wilder was doing had Joseph Parker winning by unanimous decision, with one scorecard being a clean sweep for him to score that win. The next one is Rafael Espinoza against Robeisy Ramirez. That one you might see that as one that could potentially be a candidate for another category that we have here on the Boxing Source. But Rafael Espinoza was like, a significant underdog to Robeisy Ramirez coming into the fight. Robeisy Ramirez had like a 11-1 to like 12-1 odds in favor of him going into this fight. And that, he was also, as far as like Ramirez, he was able to get up from a knockdown scored in the 5th round to get back into the fight and score a knockdown in the 12th round for him to win the bout by majority decision over Robeisy Ramirez to win the WBO featherweight title. And the last one that we have is Adrian Curiel's win over Sevenathy Nanshinga in the light flyweight division. Nanshinga was there as the IBF light flyweight champion, coming in there with an undefeated record. Adrian Curiel was there just 23 wins, 4 losses and 1 draw. Had only 4 of those wins by way of knockout. But he was able to surprise Sevenathy Nanshinga in 2 rounds to drop him and stop him and become the new IBF light flyweight champion. So those are the candidates for upset of the year. And for me, it's kind of a tough one there, man. But I just felt like that Rafael Espinoza win over Robeisy Ramirez was the upset of the year, because I really felt like, that Ramirez, folks were thinking about Ramirez, being eventually the top guy there at the featherweight division. Some were like kind of saying that he could, potentially be the opponent for Naoya Inoue when Naoya Inoue would move up to featherweight from 122. And, he just ran into someone in Rafael Espinoza that was just not, willing to quit there after being knocked down. And his, his work ethic was able to get him through that fight and through those 12 rounds. And a thing there for him to get the win. Let me see here. Chris M's in the building. What's going on with you? He said, do I remember the odds of Ugas Barrios going in? No, I don't. I don't think it was significantly in favor of Yordenis Ugas there. Actually, shoot. I thought I had it somewhere though. I thought I had the bet slip for it, but I won't be able to find it like right now, because I know I had kept it when I went out to that fight card, but I can't really find it right now. So I don't think it was that significant in favor of Yordenis Ugas, but yeah, he was favored in that fight against Mario Barrios, but Barrios was able to get the win and have a good performance there against Yordenis Ugas. But I just had that Robeisy Ramirez lost to Rafael Espinoza as the upset of the year there, man. So that's what I got there for the 2023 Boxing Source upset of the year. Rafael Espinoza over Robeisy Ramirez there, man. Were you able to catch that particular fight there, Terrell? That was on Top Rank. I think, yeah, it was on Top Rank on ESPN or whatnot. So I don't know if you're able to see that one or remember that one.
Yeah, no, I did see that fight. It was a very interesting fight because as we know, Rafael Espinosa is what 6'1", something like that.
Yep.
Extremely tall for the division. So whoever he fights, he's going to be a funny looking matchup. You see what I'm saying? Being 6'1" and coming at the featherweight limit, which is crazy when you think about that. But it was a competitive fight, but at the same time, you kind of thought, oh well, Robeisy is probably going to just get inside, things like that, and make the taller man pay, things like that. But it was kind of back and forth, things like that. But just not so much the fight, but when you think about as you're doing these awards, I'm thinking about the impact of the victory, right? And even when you're going to progress to the fight of the year, things like that, upset of the year, and even talking about what's the impact. So we saw Espinosa get a title, good for him. And even when you talk about Wilder, Joseph Parker, what was the impact of that defeat? Obviously, Wilder lost, Parker lost, Parker won in that regard, and there were supposed plans for Wilder to fight Joshua. Now that seems to be up in flux at this point now, because that fight kind of stinks now with Wilder having losing, and we know now that the Saudis were paying top dollar to pay for a couple of fights for those guys for support reported for next year. So that's a big impact as a result of that loss and that fight. Even we jumped down to a fight that we earlier this year with Mendoza and Sebastian Fundora. Fundora had a great win over Lubin earlier this year, I believe that was. And at that point, he's really poised to be in a commanding position at 154. As we already know, one loss doesn't kill you. Depends on how you come back, depends on how you lose, who you lose to, and things like that. But Fundora was definitely stifled in his progress in taking that loss to Mendoza. So once again, the end of that loss and what that did going forward for that division. So, but I have no qualms at all with saying Espinosa and Ramirez was the upset of the year. Because once again, look at the impact and look at how the actual fight played out. It was drama in that fight. So great choice. Great choice.
Yeah. And the thing was, like I was saying with Ramirez, I feel like, given the state of the featherweight division, looked like Ramirez was kind of like being out there as the top guy in the featherweight division. We didn't really see what was going on there with Vargas, I think it was, because Vargas had went up to 130 and tried to win the WBC title at 130 and fell short against O'Shaquie Foster. And so he said he's going back to 126 and, doing that for 126. So we got to see what his next move is going to be there. Likely it could be against Brandon Figueroa. So we'd like to see what happens in that. But, given the other things that did happen, you had the thing there with, Fundora losing there to Brian Mendoza. You had, as someone said, Erickson Lubin defeating, Ramos there because, that was a big win. A lot of people felt like Ramos was the up and coming guy, particularly there in the 154-pound division. And, Lubin was able to, fight the fight that he wanted to, get into there in Las Vegas in September and was able to get the decision win. You know what I'm saying? Nah, I don't know if I could really call it that. They might still have some some rights to that one, but I don't think I could do it that way. But that Ramos, when Jesus Ramos Jr., a lot of people felt like he was coming up and being a serious candidate to really be one of those next contenders there at 154. But that Lubin win, really kind of like upset the apple cart there. So that was a good one from Chris M. But another one that he put up there, Kirill Lanshinga was a top 5, nomination. But that Marquise Taylor upsetting Yoelvis Gomez, that one was a really surprising one too. Yoelvis Gomez was, one of those guys that could have been a serious, contender within that division. And I don't think that a lot of people kind of like gave Marquise Taylor a shot there within the middleweight division in that fight. That was in Atlantic City for that Boots Villa card. But Taylor was able to box very good early in that fight, and then over the course of the middle of the bout, you really kind of seeing Yorvis Gomez be not necessarily one dimensional, but he was very predictable in his offense, and so. You had Marquise Taylor being able to defend well against that, and he was able to get through that particular fight and get the win. He said, "Tip, shout out to Tip Bayless, Rolly Romero for upset knockout and performance of the year." That's a good one. That's a good one. That's a good one, Tip. Oh man, yeah, that one was funny, man. Yeah, that that performance there that he had. Oh my goodness, man! Like everybody pretty much thought that he was losing that fight there against Ismael Barroso. He was clearly losing that fight, and then he just lands one of them wild punches. Bam, bam. And then Tony Weeks explained it, like unexplainably stops the fight. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't believe it, man. I don't believe it. Oh, yeah. Now this one here kind of hurt me, man. This one here, that one hurt me, man. That was there, man. MGM National Harbor, Gabriel Maestre. Folks know about the whole controversy that he had in another fight. What is he? He's like a number one contender or regular thing there against Trayvon Marshall. A lot of people felt like Trayvon was supposed to be up and coming there in the division. But yeah, like seeing Trayvon getting hit big and being knocked down first and then getting up, and he couldn't figure out how to hold on to Gabriel Maestre, and then ended up getting knocked out. I mean, that kind of hurt because he was he's from the DC area, and that was there in the MGM National Harbor there in DC, and that one kind of stung there a little for a bit, So yeah, that one was pretty jarring for some. Monday night quarterbacking type of thing. Some people felt like that shouldn't have been a good matchup for Trayvon Marshall, that he shouldn't have gotten in there against Gabriel Maestre, given Maestre's experience, not just in the professional ranks, but also in the amateurs. But, it is what it is. Marshall is able to, get back into the ring and score a win after that. So, he's back at it, so there's that. All right. So, that was the thing for upset of the year. We got KO of the year, fighter of the year, fight of the year, and trainer of the year here. Next up. Now, I will go with trainer of the year. You got, a few candidates out there. You got Calvin Ford, Coach Calvin Ford, of course, is behind Gervonta Tank Davis, Lorenzo Truck Simpson, among others there within the Baltimore DC area. So of course, of Tank Davis's performances against Hector Luis Garcia and Ryan Garcia. So you do have that. You also have as another candidate, Coach Ronnie Shields, who is behind David Morrell Jr. Morrell Jr. has had, a couple of good performances here this year in the super middleweight division, early stoppage victories in the super middleweight division. Ronnie Shields also has Vito Mildicky Jr. In his camp. He also has, as a heavyweight candidate there, Filip Hrgovic in his camp. And yes, he was able to be part of the return for Jamal Charlo in November when he faced and defeated Jose Benavidez Jr. So Ronnie Shields has had, a very large plate. He has like a, Yoenis Tez too. Also in his camp, he got like his camp is growing too. It is growing. So, you have Ronnie Shields as another candidate. And the only one other candidate is Brian Bomac McIntyre. You have, of course, the win by Terrence Crawford over Errol Spence Jr. You have, what happened with Chris Eubank Jr. in his rematch against Liam Smith. You got, Keyshawn Davis is also there in the camp there for Brian McIntyre, among many other high-profile, fighters there in the camp of B&B Boxing there in Omaha, Nebraska, amongst other places there that Brian is able to be part of. And so the Boxing Source 2023 Trainer of the Year. Yeah, I think it's really not much of a competition for many. It's Brian Bomac McIntyre. He, and it's not, just with what happened there with Terrence Crawford and his win over Errol Spence Jr., but it was also, to me, what stood out is how he was able to have Chris Eubank make those adjustments to defeat Liam Smith in that bout that he had over in the UK. And then after that, be able to go through what he went through, being stuck in the UK and being in jail in the UK for those months, So he was able to, do his thing. He had like a fight, and then, going over to the UK, for that one, and then, having that happen to him, and then for him to, finally be able to be back and go through that. But, what he's been able to do this year with his fighters makes him, the clear cut winner for Trainer of the Year 2023, Brian Bomac McIntyre. So shout out to Bomac for that one, man.
Yeah, what's funny, I totally agree with that choice for all the reasons that you highlighted right there with Bomac. What's in contrast to Bomac is another trainer. If his fighters could have performed and won, this wouldn't even be a contest at all. When we look at Derrick James, you look at the Charlo performance, look at Spence, of course, Spence Jr. Those things resulted in losses. But if you think about it, if those guys would have won and even won emphatically or whatever, they just would have won. This wouldn't be a contest at all. It would be runaway. But in boxing, we have to win. You don't get participation awards, as we already know. Definitely.
Yep, for sure. And also, on top of that, bringing up Derrick James this year too. He also, of course, he's had a number of guys in the camp. He's added a couple of people in the camp. One of them is Ryan Garcia, who was able to have a win, after losing to Tank Davis. He has, Ryan Garcia switched trainers to, have Derrick James there, and he was able to have the win. What was it? A few weeks ago, it was early in December that he had that win, but he also had, Frank Martin, that, he was able to win in his one fight that he had against Artem Harutyunyan. But, a lot of people felt like he was not really all too sharp or whatnot for that particular fight against Harutyunyan there in the lightweight division. And then, of course, most notably was having Anthony Joshua in the camp for, 2 fights. The first one against Jermaine Franklin that, went the full 10 to 12 rounds for that. He was able to get the decision for that. And then, he was supposed to be preparing for a rematch against Dylan White. Didn't end up being Dylan White, ended up being Robert Helenius, who was just coming off a fight like from the previous week or whatnot. And it just took like Joshua a good little while for him to, get the stoppage victory, but it just seemed like his, timing and stuff was off in that particular fight. Then you see what happens with Anthony Joshua while he's there full time with Ben Davison. in his bout against Otto Wallin, and he's, looking sharp and almost looking like he was when he was at the top of his game, with Robert McCracken. So it's like, yeah, is it something where, Derek James had kind of been at the top, as far as like the high level profile fights, but just couldn't really get, things all together for, a number of the fighters that he had in their biggest fights this year. It's almost like, you said, or what I said with Canelo's trainer the previous year with Eddie Reynoso, when he had Oscar Valdez against Shakur Stevenson in 1 week, and then he had Canelo Alvarez versus Dimitri Bivol the following week, and he lost both of those fights, and it wasn't really close in either one of those fights, according to many. So I guess here with Derek James, he had the same thing. So yeah, he couldn't really be considered there. But like on the flip side, you had Brian Bomac McIntyre there, who, like I said, just stood out with the the Crawford performance, with being there with Keyshawn Davis, and like I said, there with Chris Eubank Jr. in his win in the rematch against Smith. So big ups to Bomac for that. All right. So let's see what we got now. We got 3 more here, and I'm gonna just go to knockout of the year. And for knockout of the year, man, I got a number of candidates. Shout out to Big Money in the building, man. Big Money in here. Big thanks for joining in live here for the Boxing Source 2023 award show. For those that want to support, you can hit the like button here. We appreciate the support here on the Boxing Source, and I've always appreciated y'all tuning in for the live podcast, the interviews, and everything like that. And speaking of interviews, we do have the interview with the WBO interim heavyweight champion Zhilei Zhang on the channel. If you haven't caught it already, some folks have kind of like been talking about part of that interview, when he was mentioning a potential fight between him and Anthony Joshua in 2024. But he also has some choice comments about, 1, Francis Ngannou, and 2, Tyson Fury. So be sure to catch the interview to catch, what he said about those 2 guys there. Of course, they had their fight earlier this year where you see the, Francis Ngannou score knockdown, but Fury ended up getting the decision. All right, so Kate, knockout of the year. We got like a lot of them. We got 6 candidates here, 6, right? We got first Jonathan Lopez over Jose Santos. So we got that. That was those are two candidates. Unfortunately, I'm not able to do a women's list there, Chris. So I didn't put it on there. But I mean, I might have something after this to where I could do that. But we'll see how that goes. But here we go here for the KO of the year. Jonathan Lopez over Jose Santos. Right, that was a good one. We had mentioned this one here. Brian Mendoza's knockout win over Sebastian Fundora. You got Junto Nakatani, his 12th round knockout over Andrew Maloney. That one was just, that one was brutal. That one was brutal though. You got, I mentioned him, Zhilei Zhang with his knockout win in the rematch against Joe Joyce. You got Luis Alberto Lopez against Overbeck College. I don't know, man. I just had that up there. And you got Rayo Valenzuela over Chris Colbert. That one was, of course, sick. And of course, you got the iconic, so to speak, picture of Rayo there, while Chris Colbert is laid out. But also you had the video of Patrick Harris, shaking his head after seeing Chris Colbert get knocked out. So you do have that. But yeah, there's not those are a number of candidates there, man. But the whole thing with the Mick Collin, that's just that's been a running joke over the past couple of years. So that ain't gonna be the pick. But you had a few that were some real candidates here, and this one was a tough one. This one was a tough one. But here's my pick for knockout of the year. Whew. I'm gonna go with here it is. Zhilei Zhang's knockout win over Joe Joyce. He set that up perfectly when he was able to do it. He was going to the body at first, and then when he unloaded that punch on the Joe Joyce and put him to he almost literally put him to sleep. Like Joe Joyce, I'm sorry, but Joe Joyce looked like he was laying down, like he was on the bed, man. All he had to do was put a pillow right there where his head was. He was done. I was like, man, that was just a perfect setup, man. A perfect setup for that one. So I had Zhilei Zhang over Joe Joyce, man, but that Ryo knockout, the Junto Nakatani one, and Brian Mendoza were all good ones, but just the way that Zhang set that one up, man. And when I saw that live, I was like, ooh. So yeah, I got Zhilei Zhang getting the knockout over Joe Joyce to be the knockout of the year, man. Terrell, what do you think about that one, man?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like you really can pick one above the other. I mean, but one thing I was waiting to ask you, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you pick in this category, what's the impact of that knockout, right? In terms of what happened for that division, was a title on the line? Is it a prospect, or is it someone that's been like Fundora? Fundora basically had next, and he got knocked out, and that stopped him. But in terms of the impact of that knockout, once again, when you're talking about Zhilei over Joyce like that, no one expected that. No one expected that at all, right? We saw from the first fight that Joyce was just was super slow. We know that. I think Zhilei got the TKO in the first fight, I believe, but then to come back knockout, it was emphatic. And even in the Juntao Nakatani over Maloney, that was emphatic knockout. Fight's over. Ain't no getting up. Yep. Wave it off right there. And for me personally, I definitely love the Colbert knockout. And the reason why I say that, it was kind of disputed from the first fight in that regard. The other guy thought he won against Colbert. That didn't happen. And then one reason why I love boxing, the amount of shit talking that Colbert did in the lead up to the second fight, and to the fight to the point where they actually made I think it was a $50,000 bet or whatever in that prior to the fight, things like that. And then to come into the fight and get laid out like that, and you go to sleep, land face down on the ropes. that was just as emphatic as well, right there. But so I mean, really, you really can't just argue once about the other. But for me, it's all about the impact that victory had on the division. And from that point, Zhilei Zhang has definitely announced himself, because we know, looking back for him, I definitely thought he'd be Hrgovic in that point. But coming back and get these wins over Joyce like that, someone else that was in the top 10 and being pushed to get to a title shot, and to win like he did, that makes him very deserving. I'm glad he's had that redemption for himself. Hope we'll see him back in the ring again soon. Maybe not necessarily for a title, but we get someone in the top 10. So I have no problem with that at all. Not at all.
Yeah, man. I mean, yeah, you had some real good candidates out there for knockout of the year. Like, the thing with Brian Mendoza's one over Sebastian Fundora, like when that happened, that one was, probably clearly the leading candidate up to that point. And then you just had, War that came through. That Nakatani one, that one was just, I mean, it was already like brutal. Like I didn't feel like up until that, that 12th round, I thought it should have even continued past the 12th round. And then, it just, and then when he just like unloaded that punch on the Andrew Maloney, man, I was just really worried for Maloney, man. I thought, he could have been like really, really damaged, man, for real. Like, yeah, like that could have been a career, ender or something like that. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, that thing with Ryo, he wanted to get that get back. March, what was that? March 28th in Las Vegas. He had the first fight against Chris Colbert, was able to score the knockdown in the first round. Chris Colbert, was able to get back in the fight, for that. And then, once the judges' scorecards went through, they had Colbert winning. And Colbert was talking a lot of smack then. Then when this thing was, locked in, he was talking a lot of smack. And yeah, he said you bet 50K. And well, yeah, Ryo just pretty much like styled on him over the course of majority of those rounds, and then to end it emphatically with that knockout. Yeah, that was real big on his part. And that kind of like stood out for some. But yeah, I just feel like Zhilei Zhang knockout win over Joe Joyce, man. Yeah, that was just it, man. Yeah, I just felt like that was a perfect setup, and it ended up being a perfect ending of there for Zhilei Zhang. For him to kind of like stand out. Chris M, shout out to Chris M again, said, yeah, it could be KO performance and upset of the year. Now, the thing with the first fight, I thought the first fight was going to be the candidate for upset of the year. But, they ended up just having a rematch, real quick. And Zhang just emphatically ended that, you know what I'm saying? And big thanks for Big Money there for just tuning into the full interview that I had there with Zhilei Zhang, man. He's ready to see what's up for 2024. I think he's gonna have at least one significant fight there in 2024, man. But he's really staying humble. Would be prepared for like any of those fighters that's there in the heavyweight division, particularly those at the top. So yeah, I really want to see like what Zhilei Zhang is going to do for his next fight. Like he really doesn't have, for some they say he don't really have that much time there. He's already 39, 40 years old, so he's got to get in there and get in the mix against the top fighters. You know what I mean? Got to get in there in the mix against those top fighters real soon. But we'll see how that goes there for that one. So yeah, now we got like two more candidates. There we got Fighter of the Year and Fight of the Year. But we're gonna go to Fight of the Year, and we got a few candidates here, man. We got Emmanuel Navarrete versus Liam Wilson. That was earlier this year. Where Wilson was able to give Navarrete a lot of trouble there early in the fight, but Navarrete was able to pull that one off there for that win. You got Devin Haney versus Vasyl Lomachenko. That was a close fight, but ended up with Haney getting the win there for him to at the time defend the undisputed lightweight titles. You had also Luis Neri versus Hovhannisyan. That one was, a great bout, man. I think now if I would have had round of the year as one of those things, I probably would have had like Neri versus Hovhannisyan as one of those candidates for round of the year. As far as like, just having that type of action, that was just, great as far as like those two guys going at it. So that one was another one that is potential that we have there for Fight of the Year. You also have, O'Shaquie Foster against Eduardo Hernandez. That is a candidate there for Fight of the Year. You had like Hernandez that was really, giving O'Shaquie a lot of trouble over the course of that fight. but then you had, Foster scoring a knockdown late, and then in the 12th round was able to finish him off, to get the win. And the thing for me on that fight was that once the fight was over, and you seen those scorecards, like two of the three judges had Hernandez winning, but one of them had Hernandez winning every single round up until the 12th round, which was crazy. But that one was an exciting fight. And then you also have, break up this fight again, Robeisy Ramirez versus Rafael Espinoza. I mean, that one there, I had already, explained what happened in that fight. And yeah, it just looked like, action from, it was pretty good, up until, that 5th round where you had Espinoza get knocked down. But then with him coming back, him having the volume to, keep Ramirez like on his back foot for a majority of it, and then scoring that knockdown in the 12th to, really like have him get the win and be able to win that belt. So there you go. Those are the 5 candidates for Fight of the Year. And my thing there, man, here is my winner for the Boxing Source 2023 Fight of the Year. It goes to none other than Shakur Stevenson versus Edwin De Los Santos. No, I'm just playing.
Yeah,
I'm just playing.
What?
Oh man, but this might be a first, man. I think over the past couple of years, I don't think I've had something like this happen. But we got another award for Espinoza versus Ramirez. That to me is the Fight of the Year, man. That one there, man. I'm telling you that, I go on ESPN Plus and watch that joint again, man. I definitely watch that one again. I know that, some people might say that, Haney Lomachenko was pretty good. It was a good fight, but it just didn't have like that compelling action like Ramirez versus Espinoza did. And, even though I had Navarrete versus Wilson on there too, like his bout that he had against Coach Sesal, that was on that Shakur Stevenson De Los Santos card. That one was a good bout. That one was a pretty good bout too. But yeah, Ramirez Espinoza, the way that one was, like, yeah, that one to me, that one is Fight of the Year, man. That's what stood out to me for that.
Yeah, I'm totally in agree with that. Once you talk about impact, but at the same time, it's not just about impact; it's about the action that's actual in a fight. Me, I would have loved to say Lomachenko Haney would have been the Fight of the Year, but for the most in spots that was very technically fought in that regard. You can see like bunch of exchanges and things like that. You don't necessarily see it all the time in a top level fight, even though they had a great impact as Haney defended his the lightweight belts in that regard. As Lomachenko was trying to regain those belts. But as far as was it action packed? No, it was tense. It was definitely tense throughout the fight because at that point, neither guy was just want to concede ground, things like that. But in terms of like actual fighting back and forth, you're definitely spot on with your choice. Definitely.
Yeah, man. I mean, that one was just action packed. Almost from like start to finish, and the way that the way that Rafael Espinoza just came back in that fight and got the win, man. It was just crazy. So I thought that was awesome. Shout out to Chris M. There he had other candidates. He has Joshua Buatsi versus Paulo Stipian and Derek Chisora versus Washington up there, but Stevenson versus De Los Santos for Fight of the Year. I'm telling you, man, man. When you had something that could rival Robert Easter, versus what's his name, man? Oh my God, yeah, that was Stevenson versus De Los Santos, man. Like, I mean, Like that was terrible. Like that Easter versus Bartholomew fight. If you thought that was bad, imagine going through Stevenson de los Santos. And you know the thing that got folks with this one was you had it on a Thursday night, and like the fight itself didn't really start till like 11:45 or like almost near 12 a.m. uh Easter time, man. Like it was crazy. Like, and you had to go through 12 full rounds of that. And then for that to have like the lowest outputs for offense in the course of a 12-round bout, like, oh my God, that's just wow, I was just
Add insult to injury on Shakur Stevenson's comments post fight about basically I don't care. This is what I did. I mean, come on, man. You're supposed to be one of the top guys. You rolled that out for a product for people to consume. And when you're on, like I said, on a Thursday night, you're by yourself, no other competition for pretty much things like that in the as far as combat sports, and that's what you give us. And then, like I said, just to give those type of comments, like whatever, I did what I had to do.
Yeah, I mean, this was coming off of his win earlier. Like I said, he was there in Newark against Shuichiro Yoshino. He had his hometown fight against Shuichiro Yoshino, where he was able to score a knockdown and end up stopping Yoshino. So his momentum was really picking up there with him campaigning at 135, and at the time he was chasing Devin Haney and seeing if he could get in there with Devin Haney after Haney's fight with Lomachenko. But with Haney moving up, and Stevenson was trying to get in a fight and say that he would get in for the vacant title there for the WBC. Ended up fighting De Los Santos, and De Los Santos had been what was that, part of that July, what was it, like July 8th or something like that, there in Atlantic City. He had a 12-round bout. He pretty much like scored a shutout there. And afterwards it was like, okay, what are you gonna do here against a guy that had just one loss, but was coming off of a really good streak of wins, and Stevenson had a performance that he had, even while you had, what was it, Terrence Crawford was there there with you, Floyd Mayweather was there with you, Andre Ward was there with you, so. And I know he was talking about, dealing with an injury or whatnot, but, still, there's some ways that you could perform with injury, and there's other ways that you could, make it a fight of sorts, So I was like, that was just bad, man. It was just bad all the way around. All right, so that leaves one more category left. The Boxing Source 2023 Fighter of the Year. We got like a few candidates out there, man. Yeah, man. Oh yeah, Chris. Yeah, Chris. Yeah, man. I was there for the Joseph Adorno fight, man. I think what it was, Adorno was moving down to fight De Los Santos. There was a lot of talk, before the fight. And that was supposed to be like one of those fights where De Los Santos was going to, try to say that he would be one of those serious contenders there at lightweight. And at that time, after, me seeing that fight, I'm like, I didn't really see what it was there for De Los Santos. And then after this fight against Shakur Stevenson, immediately after that fight, I said, man, listen, I do not want to see Edwin De Los Santos there again, man. Shout out to guillotine enthusiasts in the building, man. I think he listed for the potential candidates for Fighter of the Year. Guillotine enthusiasts has put in his vote. But here are the candidates that we have here for Fighter of the Year. First off, we have Devin Miles Haney. Yeah, I did say his full name. Devin Haney. Of course, he had his win over Vasyl Lomachenko. And then he followed that up with his win over Regis Prograis. There for him to now be currently the WBC Super Lightweight Champion. Yep. So you got him there as one of the candidates for Fighter of the Year. Another one here we got is, since I said the full name for Devin Haney, I'll say it here for this one. Santos Saul Alvarez Barragan. Yep, Canelo Alvarez. He had his 2 performances against John Ryder and Jermell Charlo, defending the undisputed super middleweight titles this year in 2023. You also have Terrence Bud Crawford there as a candidate. 1 fight, but it was high stakes in that bout for the undisputed welterweight championship against Errol Spence Jr. Was able to have a great performance en route to a stoppage victory over Errol Spence to become the undisputed welterweight champion. You also have Naoya Inoue here, who was able to defeat Stephen Fulton to become unified champion at Super Bantamweight 122. And then recently defeated Marlon Tapales to become the undisputed champion at 122 pounds, becoming another fighter to become 2-weight undisputed world champion. And you also have Gervonta Tank Davis there as a candidate and David Benavidez as a candidate. But the Boxing Source 2023 Fighter of the Year, to me, I come on, we pretty much have had this discussion over the past week. A lot of people have really shared their thoughts on this, and I just got to give it up to Naoya Inoue, the monster, Naoya Inoue, the real monster. I don't know what the thing there with Berlanga is all about. Naoya Inoue, undisputed champion at 122, dominant performance against Stephen Fulton. Pretty much that was, days before Crawford's win over Errol Spence Jr. And then to top it off with this win over Marlon Tapales to become undisputed champion at Super Bantamweight. It was a pretty good fight too. I was able to watch it live. I was able to get up early enough to watch it live. Well, I was able to, watch from the 4th round on. Marlon Tapales, he was doing fairly well on the offensive side of sorts, but on the defensive side, he was getting caught a couple of times early in the fight. Then he switched his defensive stance that gave him a little bit more success, but still wasn't able to stop the momentum of Naoya Inoue in that bout. Inoue was able to get the stoppage win and become undisputed champion at 122. And with his performances there, yes, he is the 2023 Boxing Source Fighter of the Year. Now, that doesn't mean that he's number 1 pound for pound. I haven't said that. I just said for this year, Naoya Inoue is the 2023 Fighter of the Year. So that's what I got.
I'll disagree. I was really hoping that you picked the fighter that I wanted. That didn't happen. But once again, hard to make a case against Inoue with what he's done. Hard to make a case. But once again, I'm going back to impact, right? And it's a lot of factors that goes into impact for this one, right? Because Inoue, international fighter, great accomplishments. What he did with Fulton, no one expect that. We know it's going to be a competitive fight, but once again, the main thing with Inoue, as he continues to come up in weight, does he bring his power, bring the same skill set, and at that point, we see that's an emphatic yes, right? And now, like I said, he's now the second man to unify 2 different divisions. Great accomplishment, great fights, great resume for this year alone, right? And for me personally, and once again, when you think of impact, right, it's Crawford. And it's not just who he beat. Well, it's not just that, but how he beat them. Because at this point, Spence was what? at worst top 3 in the pound for pound for quite some time. Spence was solidified in the top 3, however you had your order, and that's whatever bias you may have for Spence. You can argue his body work and how he's fight, despite his accidents, things like that, stuff outside the ring. He still was who he is, and at that point. But when you in terms of impact, and think about that, Crawford's victory was polarizing, right? And I think you are familiar with my man on Twitter, Ray Jackson, who actually went into hiding for quite some time after his fighter lost, right? And like I said, it's not only the fact that Crawford won, but look at how he won. Master class performance. And at that point, you had people you had your Crawford supporters, you had your Spence supporters, and both on both sides, both people were fiery for their guy, right? And rightfully so. But for Crawford, once again, the impact of his victory from what he did, came out, got the TKO victory, outclassed him, outsped him, outpowered him, did everything. And it was just one fight, but it was one hell of a fight that had tons and tons of impact going forward. Because look at it now, right? Crawford he's I think relinquished what 1 or 2 of the belts, things like that, and now he's been and just that decision alone has now made other opportunities for other people in that regard at 147. So look at the impact of that victory of what happened and now going forward. So for me, Crawford was definitely the fighter of the year. I think he deserves that, and certainly honorable mention to anyway. Can't knock what he's done, but I'm not sure if the fact that he's Japanese, I'm not sure if that hurts him as far as his popularity. I mean, your hardcore people, box people, we love him, and we definitely embrace what he's done as a hardcore boxing fan. But for Crawford, just more popularity, things like that, statewide, even to the point post-fight with Spence, they gave him he had a nice tour around the world, getting on news shows, TV shows, stuff like that. So getting this flower, so rightfully so for me, with the impact that Crawford's victory has, I definitely have Crawford as the fighter of the year.
I see, man. Like you said, with your criteria, you're going by impact of win, and so, with that being a criteria, yep, you're given, like we're saying, you had 2 undefeated fighters going into that bout. The two clear cut number 1 and number 2 fighters in the welterweight division. And 2 guys that were clearly around the top 5 or so within the pound for pound rankings for many people. Within the boxing source going into that particular bout, you had Spence and Crawford be within the top 5. And I think it was like 3 versus 5. So that one was like a very impactful fight going into it. And with Crawford's performance, was a dominant performance, a great performance on Crawford's part for him to get that win and become the undisputed welterweight champion. And at least for the boxing source, by the time that fight happened, he became the number 1 pound for pound fighter. You had someone like Alexander Usyk that was around there. Like I said, Errol Spence was around there. Naoya Inoue was around there. But I think, that's what pretty much like had is the top 3 guys at the time before that week was Usyk, Spence, Inoue were around the top 3. Crawford was at the top 5. And at the time before that particular week when Inoue faced Stephen Fulton and that Crawford and Spence fought, you had Fulton in the top 10 of the pound for pound rankings. So you had 2 fights within the top 10 of the boxing source pound for pound. But given what Crawford did in order to beat a higher ranked fighter and to do it in the fashion that he did it, that's what made him become the number 1 pound for pound fighter in the boxing source pound for pound rankings. So, yep, you did have Crawford as number 1 pound for pound. But me given those 2 performances that Inoue had this year, I pretty much like gave it up to him. You know, for him having the performances that he had against Stephen Fulton, which was pretty much like in similar dominating fashion against Stephen Fulton, and then have his win over Marlon Tapales. That's one. And at least for me, for my criteria was I felt like you can't really like give. I wouldn't like it was a big fight, but it was one fight. Like for me, that's like if I would have said like last year, maybe Alexander Usyk, or like in 2021, Alexander Usyk could be fighter of the year when he had just one fight, you know, in comparison to like somebody like Dimitri Bivol, who, at least that, year or whatever it was, he defeated Canelo Alvarez, but then had his fight against Zurdo Ramirez and won against Zurdo Ramirez. So that's why I just can't really put that much weight on Terrence Crawford being the fighter of the year. So I handed it out to Inoue. Chris then with the couple of comments here, he said Canelo is a hell no for me, given that he fought 154 pounder in Jamel Charlo. Great event, good matchmaking on the undercard, but yeah, Alvarez Charlo was a mismatch going in. Yeah, I mean, that was a very good card. Like I said, Jesus Ramos versus Erickson Lubin, Yordenis Ugas versus Barrio Barrios, Elijah Garcia versus Jose Resendiz. Going into that card, that was a good pay-per-view card. So y'all was really looking forward to that when I went out there. So that one was a good one. Said can't go wrong with Crawford, Inoue, or Haney. Yeah, man. I mean, Haney had those wins against Lomachenko and against Regis Prograis, and Haney had his performance against Regis Prograis. Some say with his decision win over Lomachenko that some people felt like Lomachenko won. So maybe that counted against him, but I had Haney winning that fight, so really didn't much matter on this end. But yeah, to me it was between Crawford and Inoue, and I just gave Naoya Inoue the edge there for that. So that is the winner 2023 Boxing Source Fighter of the Year, Naoya Inoue. So that covers it. You got Fighter of the Year, Naoya Inoue. Fight of the Year, Robeisy Ramirez versus Rafael Espinoza. Knockout of the Year, Zhilei Zhang. In the rematch against Joe Joyce. Trainer of the Year, Brian Bomac McIntyre. Upset of the Year, with two awards, man. Rafael Espinoza over Robeisy Ramirez, and Prospect of the Year, Bruce Carrington. So that is the 2023 Boxing Source Awards there. You know what I'm saying? So there's that, man. Yeah, man. The only one that had to overcome adversity. I mean, he had, what was it, like the 9th and 10th round or something like that, where, Lomachenko was like, looking like he had the momentum getting back on his side. And it was just Haney just being able to weather that. And, at least live going into the 12th round, I felt like it was close. And I felt like, Haney took that 12th round. It was similar to the 12th round between Lomachenko and Teofimo Lopez. It just seemed like it was up in the air at that point, and that the person that would have won the 12th round would have won the fight. And, well, Haney did enough to win that 12th round. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to the guillotine there, man. For being part of this live telecast, man. You'll be able to be sure to catch you on Twitter or X or whatever they want to call it this month, or whatever it is there. But yeah, that's the 2023 Boxing Source Award show there. Look forward to 2024. Hopefully we have as good a year as we can have in 2024 as we did this year. Of course, we have, the news of, the thing with Premier Boxing Champions being part of the Amazon Prime. You're going to have 12 to 14 events on Amazon Prime there through PBC. You got what's going on with Top Rank and ESPN. You have, of course, the Zone. That's with Matchroom and Golden Boy events here, and you have the pay-per-view that took place there, that Day of Reckoning pay-per-view. That hopefully these promoters kind of took notes with that Day of Reckoning pay-per-view. We had 8 fights, 8 fights on that card for $39.99. Now, listen, I don't want it to be like 8 fights, $39.99, and for it to go for like 6 hours. Now, I don't want that. But I'm just saying that price point was great. Like, if they could keep it close to or around that range, that's great for pay-per-views. But, it remains to be seen how that's going to go, particularly, like I said, with this conversion of PBC going from Showtime Sports to Amazon Prime. Let's see how they're going to handle pay-per-views or like on-demand events there in the boxing scene. But, definitely looking forward to 2024.
Yeah, one thing that you said regards to stuff that happened with the event back in Saudi Arabia last week. How will promoters handle that going forward, right? So one fight that a lot of people want, and that I definitely want to see, is Bivol Beterbiev. And I think it's sometime last year, Bob Arum basically told Beterbiev, basically not going to happen, basically because of the business of boxing in that regard. And mainly, we know even though Beterbiev is a great champion, he's not necessarily a great draw. And as we already know, promoters and networks are not in the business of losing money. So even though we want to see the fight, but it doesn't make sense. But now, moving forward, Saudi Arabia, their contingent has pretty much said, "Hey, we want to put on Beterbiev Bivol." Of course, providing that Bivol Beterbiev wins his fight coming up here next month in that regard. So we want to see that fight. They obviously had the money to make it happen, and I think we all expect Beterbiev to win that fight. But once again, hopefully we can see another event put on by the Saudis, but at the same time, like you said, at a great price point. And on top of that, what other fights would they put on the card to make it another great card? Because honestly, what the stuff that happened last week, I've never seen a card like that with so many great heavyweight fights, with that had so much impact upon that division. I've never seen that before, not that I recall. So hopefully they can put on something else with Bivol and build another card and probably tailor it to won't be a 6-hour event like you said. So looking forward to that.
Yeah. The thing that, stood out with this particular event was you pretty much like had, I guess the Saudi Arabia people kind of like handle, everything as reference to finances and the venue and that type of thing. So the promoters really didn't have to worry about that. All they had to do was, provide the fighter. So you had, Eddie Hearn involved, Frank Warren involved, Bob Arum involved. You had Demetrius Salita, have his, couple of fighters involved in this. You had, guys that, what was it? I think it's Luis de Cubas there with Frank Sanchez. But I mean, in a way, you've had, fighters that were involved with Premier Boxing Champions on it with Frank Sanchez and Deontay Wilder. You had Matchroom guys involved there with Dimitri Bivol and Anthony Joshua and Jairo Pataya. And you had guys with Frank Warren, like you had, Joseph Parker in there, among others. So, and Daniel Dubois, that is. So if it's something where, the promoters don't have to handle most of that money as far as like getting the fights done, then yeah, you can probably have more of these type of events happening. We're going to see it again here in February when you have the undisputed title fight between Fury and Usyk. Now, if they're going to do another event, Now you mentioned it. We don't know if Joshua versus Wilder is going to happen now. It was reported to happen. It was supposed to happen on March 9th. We don't know if it's going to happen now. But outside of that, you could still have some other fights that could still be put together. So, hey, maybe you do that. I know some folks were like saying maybe you could have Devin Haney versus Tank over in Saudi Arabia. I don't think they should have that fight in Saudi Arabia. That wouldn't make too much sense. I wouldn't want that fight to be out there. So, but as far as like these other ones where, like, say for example, that you can't get the maximum amount of revenue that you need in order to make those fights happen, then yeah, why not have it in Saudi Arabia if they're willing to host it? That's why that Bivol Beterbiev fight would look very good there in Saudi Arabia if they could have it. So, we'll see how that one goes. Looking into 2024 there, quick. Chris M says this one coming up in January, Jaime Munguia versus John Ryder. That's a good one. That's a good one. It should be Munguia. It should be. But I wouldn't be surprised if Ryder pulls off the upset. I wouldn't be surprised. The thing with Munguia is that like you really haven't seen. I haven't like seen what is the absolute best out of Jaime Munguia. Like I haven't really seen it. The last time I pretty much could have seen it maybe was when he was all the way there at 154 when he beat Saddam Ali for the WBO belt. That's probably the last time I've seen him like at his absolute best, maybe. But like maybe like these last few fights that he's had, like you really haven't seen much from him. The Sergey Derevyanchenko fight, that one was a really close bout. That one also could have been, also under consideration for like fight of the year, but that would have been like honorable mention or something like that, So there's that, man. But yeah, as far as like that fight against John Ryder, that's coming up on January 27th. Yeah, that one's going to be a interesting fight there to like kind of see where they would stand there in the super middleweight division. So yeah, I'm leaning towards Munguia, but I wouldn't be surprised if Wilder gets the win. We don't have anything set in stone for Tank. We got to see if he's legally changed his name to Abdul Wahid. So pretty much I'm naming him Tank until I get the official word. As far as that fight, Isaac Cruz, we don't know yet. They haven't really said anything's locked down yet for Tank's next fight. I'm hoping that it's not Isaac Cruz. If y'all follow what goes down on the Rise podcast with his coaches, their coach Calvin Ford and Coach Kenny Ellis, they said that nothing's really set in stone yet, but he said they may have an opponent soon. And the thing is, with the Amazon Prime, they said they really ain't starting things up until March. So, folks, fight fans are gonna be waiting until March, I guess, for the next fight to happen under the Premier Boxing Champions banner, I guess. So
I hope they come out with a boom too. I think that's very important, not only for them, but for Prime as well, just to show people that they are serious in the sport of boxing. So I hope it comes out with a great card.
Yeah. It'd be a great card, and I think it'll like show like how much Amazon Prime is invested in the product for boxing. I think that's what we're going to be looking for as far as like what their first fight card is going to be. So we'll see, how that turns out. We'll get updates on that, when things happen. But I'm definitely looking forward to it. So we'll see what happens there. There'll be, some fights that'll take place within the month of January, within the divisions that we'll be looking out for. We got like what is it? or what is this? Oh yeah. Everybody's favorite 40-year-old fighter or whatnot will be fighting next Saturday in Ismael Barroso, who got robbed by Rolly Romero. He's facing O'Hara Davies. That'll be in Las Vegas there. So folks will be able to tune in. That's part of the card with Virgil Ortiz Jr. returning to the ring against Frederick Lawson. You're also going to have Arnold Barbosa as part of that card too. So you're going to see, guys that are, undefeated and highly ranked in these respective divisions. That'll be part of that Golden Boy card coming up on Saturday. But that starts the action here in the year 2024, which is just a few hours away.
So quick question for you.
Yep.
Two things. Give me your hottest fighter for next year. As far as when I say about that, once again, Impact. What do we expect from that fighter to accomplish within 2024? And give me your hottest division in terms of once again fights, ranked, things like that. So best fighter for next year, as far as what do we expect, and what will be the hottest division?
Ooh, now to me, it might be a little bit easier for me to say the hottest division. Maybe. Because I would have came up with a quick answer in lightweight. Because you're going to have a good number of, I feel like you're going to have a good number of significant fights there in the lightweight division. Impactful fights there. Folks say, Lomachenko versus Kambosos, before vacant IBF. We got to see what's going to be out there for the, vacant WBO. Tank Davis is likely, going to be elevated to the WBA full champion. So you're going to have a good number of top level fights there in the lightweight division in 2024. But I feel like you could also say that for the super lightweight division. You got Devin Haney is now the WBC champ. You got Subio Matias there that, is probably one of the more exciting fighters in the division. And you got, of course, Teofimo Lopez that had his performance there against Josh Taylor with the WBO super lightweight title. I'm seeing that there could be some good matchups there at super lightweight as well. So as far as like the division, it's either one of those two. I say I will lean towards the lightweight division over the super lightweight division. Now, as far as the fighter, that could be the one that would have me kind of stuck. Because you say as far as Impact is concerned, okay. This is only off of one fight because it depends on what would happen after this one fight, where it would be. Now, if he wins this fight, this guy will be the one that kind of like is the fighter. If Alexander Usyk defeats Tyson Fury, that's the guy for 2024.
Yeah, that'd be hard to argue against. Yep.
Because he'll be undefeated. He'll be able to go into 2024 and he would have a win over Tyson Fury and to have wins over Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury in the heavyweight division. I mean, that kind of like stands out and that kind of, etches his place as far as like boxing lore is concerned. But as far as like being one of those guys that you're pretty much going to hear it though. If he gets the win over Tyson Fury, he's going to be mentioned among all-time greats in the sport of boxing. He will be. Just watch.
Yeah. So for once again, I'm pretty much in agreement with you. I'll probably go slightly different for my person that I want to make some good moves next year and could have an impact. And actually, doesn't even have a title right now. But once again, we talk about things that 135. We know we have people getting ready to fight, things like that. Lomachenko, Kambosos, we kind of know how it's going to play out. But still, the fight does need to happen. Tank, we know about Tank. But as still the story on Tank, we want Tank to fight a top level fighter. Like I said, even fighting a second time with Isaac Cruz does really not move the needle for your hardcore boxing people like that. So, but even getting elevated to a full champion, cool. But once again, who are you fighting and everything? So, but there's a definite potential fights at 135 that could definitely happen, and once again make that the hottest division going forward for next year. It's kind of the same thing at 140, like you talked about, with Haney now being positioned at the as the full WBC champion, and how he did that. He definitely announced his presence in the division, speed, power, position, things like that, which is staples, and maintain bringing his power up on top of that. So even the a potential Haney Ryan Garcia fight is definitely scintillating in that regard. Something that people will definitely look forward to. We know Tank's in there. Even Subriel Matias basically had some interesting comments towards Teo recently about he said, but basically Teo called him out for a fight. But why we come out for a fight, knowing that he just got done with the fight, and try and basically just called Teo a bitch, which is pretty funny. But so that's definitely an interesting division going forward for next year. But for me, the guy that could actually have a couple early fights and make a move and be an impactful fighter for next year for me is Frank Martin. And the reason why I say that, we know he had potential fight against Shakur, probably for the short money. Probably should have took that. We don't know why all the true reasons why it didn't happen, but if he can come back early on and fight one of these fractured belts, like I said, maybe WBO. I'm not sure where he's ranked within them, but for me, if he can come back and get into position and be a player and maybe have a title by the end of the year, I think that he could probably be the in line for a stellar year for next year for him. So for me, that's Frank Martin. But I totally agree with what you said about Usyk, and we all want to just get your ass in the ring and make the fight happen, please.
Yeah, yeah. We're gonna see what happens there on February 17th. There for Fury versus Usyk for the undisputed at heavyweight. Now you did say Frank Martin, which is an interesting pick in a good one because like you said, he could have been potentially in line to face Shakur Stevenson. Things didn't necessarily work out that way. So now it's like, okay, what's next for him? Because it's going to be very important to kind of like figure out what his next fight is going to be. Like for me, I would hope that it would be against Tank Davis. But if it's not, then yeah, maybe it could be for the vacant WBO, but something tells me that they won't have that be the case. So with that being said, I really want to see like where Frank Martin would be at here as far as like what his next fight is going to be in the lightweight division. So there's that, and like you said, you agreed as far as like those two divisions, the lightweight and super lightweight divisions, as far as like being impactful in 2024. So we're gonna see how that goes. I'm just hoping for more action there within these divisions. It looks like we're gonna have a couple of big fights there. Like I said, a heavyweight, hopefully a light heavyweight. We had that as well. We're gonna see what happens with Canelo next, as far as like him defending the super middleweight titles. Hopefully, it's against David Benavidez, but I'm seeing that that's unlikely. As far as like what could potentially happen instead, I don't think it's going to be David Benavidez and David Morrell either. So that kind of like puts that out of the picture too. That kind of like knocks things off for super middleweight. The middleweight division is going to be dormant once again. So I'm not even really concerned about that division. Welterweight, that'll be interesting. We don't know what's going to happen as far as like a rematch between Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence. And well, I mean, Terrence Crawford has already, had to give up one belt. Let's see what happens with the other belts. I say y'all just go ahead and have this next fight above 147 pounds. Just go ahead and have that fight above 147. Have the other fighters, duke it out for those other belts, and it kind of sort itself there. So that kind of like handles welterweight, super welterweight. We don't know what Jermell Charlo is going to do. We still don't know what happened with this little incident that happened a few weeks ago. So that has to be cleared up. And like I said, I explained what happens there at super lightweight, and we got Naoya Inoue. Let's see what happens with him after him becoming two-division undisputed champion. He says he's going to stay there in 122 for a couple more fights. If so, then that kind of like opens things up for 126. So we got to see what happens in those divisions as well. So there's going to be a lot of things to sort out. 130 super featherweight, they have to sort itself out as well. Shockey Foster will be defending his WBC title against Abraham Nova. He's now with Top Rank, so maybe you could have a unification with the winner of that fight and Emmanuel Navarrete, coming up. So, and shout out to Lamont Rhodes Jr. for winning the WBA title against Hector Luis Garcia here. So, a lot of action that is left out there for the sport of boxing in 2024. Hopefully, we get some good fights, and hopefully, we do get some big fights out there. Some people are talking about maybe Devin Haney versus Ryan Garcia. That could be a potential fight. So we'll see how that goes. But if that's the next quote unquote big event there for 2024, I look forward to it. So we'll see how that goes, man. But that being said, that's it for this particular podcast here. Like I said, last day of the year of 2023. We're going into 2024 in a few hours. Hopefully everyone has a good and prosperous 2024, and we'll look to see you here on the Boxing Source YouTube channel as we get more content for y'all to enjoy. If y'all haven't done so already, hit the subscribe button. We're trying to get to 2,000 subscribers here on the Boxing Source. Here for to provide more content for you as unbiased as we possibly could bring it. So there's that. But with that being said, man, any parting words from you, Brother Terrell? Let's see if you're still on there with us. Well, I guess he's closed out. So with that being said, y'all, that's it for the Boxing Source here on 2023. Thank everyone for being a part of this channel this year. Like I said, I'll have more next year for y'all to enjoy. And with that being said, hey, point of boxing is to hit and not get hit, not to send and trade. On that note,